Hey everyone, welcome to Professor Long's Lectures in Anatomy and Physiology. I'm Professor Bob Long. I'm going to be going over our vessel man here. You can see the outline of the human being here with the right and left arm. Remember, it's the subject's right and left, not yours, right and left leg. You can see the layout of the body and get some sense of the anatomical awareness. I'm going to go over a couple of parts of this model. I'm going to zoom in on it. Please pardon my terrible camera work, but it's just me and a video camera, okay? Now, I'm going to zoom in here on the head as much as I can and see if I can get this in focus. I apologize. But here, you can see the heart. And this model's kind of cool because you can see the chambers of the heart, the two atria, you see the valves and the ventricles. This would be the ascending aorta and the aortic arch. If we come up the aorta, always these three branches in order are brachiocephalic, left common carotid, left subclavian. The brachiocephalic would run behind the superior vena cava and come out here and become the subclavian artery on the right side, and then become the axillary artery. Here where you see the armpit, this area would be axillary artery, axillary vein. And then this would be the brachial artery. Now, if I go back over here, I can see the right common carotid artery and the right jugular vein, the left common carotid artery, the left jugular vein, okay? And those are the external jugulars. We're not going to see the internals on this model. You can also see where the left subclavian comes off here, comes out here as the left subclavian artery, and the armpit becomes the left axillary artery, and then the left brachial artery, okay? So I hope you could see all of that from the view that I was showing you. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in a little bit more on the arm and see if we can't make sense of the arm, okay? So let me zoom out just a little bit and catch more of the arm, but hopefully you can see this. See if I can catch it a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's good. So here you see the subclavian artery and the subclavian vein. And then the subclavian vein splits into the cephalic vein coming here. This is all cephalic vein. This would be the axillary vein. It's going to split into a brachial vein, and this would be the basilic vein running here. The brachial vein runs deep and it gets cut here. But this would be the cephalic vein. This is the basilic vein. And off the basilic, you can see the median cubital here, this little one coming across. This would be the axillary artery, the brachial artery, and once it splits, it comes down here. On the thumb side would be the radial artery, and this would be the ulnar artery, okay? Now, if I go to the center of the model, I'm going to look a little bit more closely at some of the vessels of the abdomen and see if we can't make sense of those, okay? And I have some labels here, and I'm going to tell you what these labels are. So, this vessel here is the abdominal aorta, the large red one coming down, which splits into the the common iliacs, the internal and external iliacs. So, abdominal aorta in red, where it splits is the common iliacs. This would be the right common iliac, the right internal iliac here, and the right external iliac here. This would be the left common iliac, left internal iliac, left external iliac, okay? So I hope you see those pretty well. Now, up above are our 5 branches coming off the aorta. Remember, there's 5. Celiac trunk, superior mesenteric, renals, gonadals, inferior mesenteric, in that order. Celiac, superior, renal, gonadal, inferior mesenteric. The celiac trunk is this vessel here, and the reason I know that is if I remove this piece of tape, I can see this red vessel coming across here to the spleen. That's the splenic artery. Then I can see this vessel coming over here. The red one going into the liver over here would be the hepatic artery. And then there's 2 little pieces that are gastric that you're not going to see very well. Here's a kidney and here's a kidney. So if I remove this piece of tape, I would see the celiac trunk with the splenic and the hepatic coming here. There's a branch right here, which is going to be the superior mesenteric. It's hard to see, but it's right there. And then I have the renal going off there, the renal artery and vein. The renal artery red, the renal vein in blue, renal artery, renal vein. If I come down a little bit more, these little ones are the gonadal arteries. And if I come down a little bit more, this branch right on the front here, which would be going off, is the inferior mesenteric. And then the abdominal aorta ends, becomes the common iliacs. So, one more time. Splenic going to the spleen, splenic artery, splenic vein. Hepatic artery, this is the hepatic portal vein coming in here, right here. This would actually be inferior mesenteric coming across. This is the superior mesenteric coming up, and that's the hepatic portal. They're kind of a purplish or bluish color, and that's why we had these little labels on here, and they block some of your view of some of the other vessels. But the reason we had them on here is because we can point to the inferior mesenteric, sorry, that's renal. I can point to the inferior mesenteric, the superior mesenteric, and then the hepatic portal coming in. All right? So, sorry, I put that in the wrong spot. Inferior mesenteric, superior mesenteric, hepatic portal. Inferior mesenteric, superior mesenteric, hepatic portal. Okay? Now, we don't see a lot of the other veins coming off here other than these two right here. Where letter A is would be your inferior mesenteric. Where B is the superior mesenteric. Where C is pointing right here is the hepatic portal. And then D is pointing to the two hepatic veins that are going from the liver into the inferior vena cava. This is all inferior vena cava right here. And I don't really see the gonadal veins very well, although I do see a renal vein right there. Now this model is not a big focus on the lab test, but it does help us get oriented and see some of this stuff, okay? Finally, let me see if I can zoom out, go down to the legs, and focus on what we can make sense of on the legs, okay? All right. There's not a lot of detail to see here, but what we can see is the end of the abdominal aorta, the common iliac artery here, the internal iliac artery here in red, the external iliac artery until it passes by the hip bone. Once it passes the iliac bone, it becomes the femoral artery on the posterior margin of the femur. This is the femoral artery. And then at the back of the knee becomes the popliteal artery. And this little branch comes off that would go to the front would be called the anterior tibule. This is the posterior tibule coming all the way down. You see a little bit of the fibula there. On this side, you can see the anterior tibial on the front of the tibia. And they don't show you the posterior tibial because it's tucked in deep. But common iliac, internal, external iliac, femoral, popliteal, anterior tibial, that little piece going past the bone, and the posterior tibial. For the veins, what you really see here is the common iliac vein, the internal iliac veins, and the external iliac veins. And then here you can see the great saphenous vein running all the way down here. You can see the femoral vein running a little bit there, but it's not a very good view of it. So, if you do see a question or two on this model, they're fair game for the lab test. Otherwise, most of the blood vessel questions will come from the wireman, and the test will include things over the heart and the blood cells. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you had as much fun as I did, although these past couple of models are not as much fun as all the others, simply because it's very difficult to get across to you in small sections in a video what you really see when you're in person on a three-dimensional model. But we're going to do the best we can, right? Make the best out of a bad situation, because sometimes that's the only choice you have. So we put a smile on and we try to attack life as best we can with the best attitude possible. I hope you had some fun. I hope you learned something. I hope to see you in the next video. See ya.